I needed to make sure that the employee felt there was differentiation and uniqueness and value in that company that he or she were working at, or they weren't going to come back the next day. They weren't going to do a good job.
Welcome to the Leader's Mindset, where we bring you conversations with leaders who are making an impact in business and our communities. Today, I'm here with Barry LaBov. He's the founder of LaBov Marketing, a fellow podcaster, and author of the book, The Power of Differentiation. Thanks for being here today, Barry.
Thank you, Jason. Let's have a lot of fun.
We are. We're going to have a ton of fun, and we're going to start that off by, I understand differentiation is your favorite word. Why is that, and how did that come about?
Well, it is my favorite word. It's a difficult word. It's 6 syllables, 15 letters. Most people cannot pronounce it, but I love it because it's so important. We're in a very commodity-based world. Things are supposed to look alike and smell alike and be priced alike. And, it's important to stand out for what you uniquely and genuinely are as a company, as a brand, as a product, service, etc., so that you sell more. But where it gets so exciting is it's also so that the people who represent you, your employees and others, actually feel good. They feel like they're doing something of significance. It inspires them. So that's why it's my favorite word.
Yeah, I've never heard differentiation put that way before. We talk on this podcast a lot about helping the people on our team find meaning in what they do. It's one of the things people are always looking for. You can go back for generations. They do these workplace surveys, and having meaning in their work is always the number one thing at the top of people's list when what they want from their workplace. And that's our job as leaders, is to help them find that. But I've never thought about using differentiation as part of the way to do that. And I really like starting to bring that into that mix of how we help our team find meaning.
Well, way back when I was in my early years in business, hey, if you had a job, that's it. You had a job. You didn't judge your company. You didn't think, well, are we doing something that's that special? And no. I have a job. It's great. Today, it's a different world. Today, it's like, okay, a person has a job, that's great. But are they proud of what they're doing? Do they think what they're doing has any value at all? And do they think what they're doing adds any value at all? And if their answer to all those things is no, why show up for work and why do a good job? So it's really important. Real quick, I worked with a guy and he wanted to, at his company, have an ice cream social every Thursday afternoon to give everybody ice cream to build morale. And at first I thought, God, that's great. But if a person has a company like that and they have the ice cream social every Thursday at 4:00, yet they don't like the company they work at, they don't even know what they're doing and why they're doing it, they'll eat the ice cream, but that doesn't mean they're going to stay. So I think we've got to give people as many reasons to be proud of what they do and to want to stay where they're at doing the best job they can.
I agree. And as much fun as that ice cream social on Thursdays is, if that's the reason people are sticking around your workplace, they're probably going to come eat their ice cream on Thursday, call in sick on Friday, and do it all again next week, right?
Exactly right.
So speaking of massive differentiation, you have said you run your company like a rock band. What's the story behind that? And what does it really mean?
Well, I'm an old washed up rock and roll musician. I wrote songs that sold well under 1 million copies, as I like to say, well under. And what I learned in rock and roll music was you had, in my case, I had 3 or 4 other guys. Each of them had a particular talent. And it was up to me as the leader of the band to either be unhappy that they had this one talent, but I wanted them to do other things. So it was a constant fight and battle, and that they were focused on doing things they didn't do that well. Or I step back and go, this guy's a great lead singer. Let's have him do most of the lead singing. And this guy's a great guitarist. Let's have him do as many of these lead guitar solos as possible. I know he can play piano, but he's not that good at that. But let's have him really show what he can do. So what I do in my business, Jason, is I look at people like that. I don't think they should be perfect. I don't think they should do a whole bunch of different things at the highest level. I think they should do the things that they do best, which, by the way, are the things they're normally very inspired to do. And they should be given a chance to be a star at what they do, as opposed to, look, just do what I say, keep your head down, shut up, get out of here, and I'll see you tomorrow at 8. I think it should be, hey, you're coming in, you have a chance to do something virtuoso every day.
I really love the idea of letting people be virtuosos at what they do. I am curious, how does that factor into building the future leaders of your company?
Well, it factors in like this, Jason. There are some who do not want to be leaders, but that doesn't make them bad and it doesn't make them weak. They're a great lead guitarist who does not want to run the band. And it's like, you know what? That's okay. Quick story. I was in a band. I was 16 years old and we had really old guys in the band. I mean, these guys were 20, 21, 22 years old. I mean, they were ancient. And I was sitting there and we were getting ready to practice. And one of them said, hey, who's the leader of this band? And the reason he asked was we were in the musicians union and the leader had to sign his name so that you could go get a job. You would sign your name and you would send this thing back to the union and all that kind of stuff. And he said, who's the leader of the band? And I looked around and I was thinking, you know, these old guys, I'm the young kid. I'm not going to be the leader, right? So I'm looking around and nobody said anything. And he said, the drummer said, look, he said, I'm the oldest guy in this band. I'm not a leader, but I'll be darned if any of you are leaders. And I went, oh my gosh, there are people out there that do not want to lead. And some of them don't even want someone else to lead. So I think you got to realize, you know, that guy was a great drummer. So my goal was, look, I know I'm the punk. I don't want to be called the leader. You can call me whatever you want, but I want you to keep drumming really well. And that's what I think we have to look at. Then there are some who want to lead, you know, and those folks need to be nurtured and taken care of. And they need to understand that they have to check their ego at the door, as the saying is, so that they allow others to be, like you said, virtuosos, but they're the leader. And that the leader may not be that superstar in the eyes of people, but if he or she can lead that team to succeed, they are a superstar. So I think it's understanding you can't be all things. There are a lot of solo performers out there. I work with many solo performers, and they are not leaders, but they're great solo performers. So I let them do that. And then I have a few who actually are leaders, and I urge them to allow those solo performers to look great as these guys, these leaders, are leading the company.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer because I come from the military where everyone's expected to be a leader. It's kind of an up or out system, but that doesn't translate well to the civilian world. And I think you've given us a really good balance of let people be virtuosos, look for that talent, look for the people who are looking to take a little more on, and then start growing those people as leaders.
Well, Jason, I got to pipe in. I love that you said that. My experience in my world is hardly anybody wants to be a leader. Hardly anybody. Now, my peers and some of the others that are running businesses and some of my clients, sure, they're leaders. But in the mass world that we live in today, I'd say a minority, 5% want to be, quote, a leader. It's not that exciting for most people. So those who really yearn for it, I think that's great. But then they have to do it in a very authentic, appropriate, ethical way as well, not just a power base, but a way that you're going. Actually, as Bob Chapman, the great philosopher and businessman said, it is your opportunity. It's your gift to be able to help others in your organization, because each person in your organization is somebody else's precious child. And you have to realize that. So you can't lord over somebody, yell at them, demean them, because you got to say, wait a minute, they're somebody's precious child. Even if that guy is 78 years old, that person is somebody's precious child. So that's our responsibility as leaders.
Yeah, I think that's something we all need to learn as leaders out in the civilian world is that's got to be okay, right? Not everyone wants to lead, and that's got to be okay. So
Yes.
that's awesome. Also, in addition to that, you have some pretty strong opinions about how and why businesses should scale. So give us your take on that.
Yeah. And I'm glad you asked me that. I am not a believer in this 100x scale concept. I think it is it's clickbait. I think it's a ploy to pull people in and actually play to their greed. So in my life, I'm not saying I'm right, but I'm just saying in my life, I look at each client just like each employee, but each client is an individual. I would rather do a great job for 21 clients and take care of them and do well than ignore them to some extent to try to get up to 1,000 really quickly. Because I'll tell you, in my business, if I scaled up from, let's say, 25 clients to 300 clients, I'm going to lose my 25 clients that I love today, and I'm going to lose most of my employees because I can't do the job that I promised I could do. And my people could not keep up with doing the level and quality of what they promised. So I believe even with small businesses, with the pressures coming down, you got to realize if you're trying to scale at a mass level, you better be doing a great job with the clients you have, and you have to assure yourself that you can continue to do that for them as you increase your client base.
Yeah, what are some of the other risks of scaling a business too fast? You see this a lot, so
I see very few companies scaling fast. I see a lot of companies wanting to scale fast. So what I see is the danger is you take your eye off the ball. I'll tell you from personal experience, I've worked with many, many clients and who were going into a situation where at some point in the near future, their company was going to be sold. And some of these clients had stock in the company and they were going, wow, as soon as we get this thing sold, I'm going to make a ton of money. And I saw their personalities change and I saw their goals change. And I saw, their best attributes start to vanish because they were looking at a short-term gain so that they could get it, even if it was at the expense of others. So I think we have to humble ourselves and realize, for most of us at least, we don't need 80 brand new clients today. If we get one in the next few weeks, that's a new client, that's great. But we have to take care of the people we have promised we will take care of. And that would be our clients and our employees.
yeah, I certainly see that pressure working with our tech startup community here in Las Vegas, working with some veteran startups around the country. I see that there's a lot of pressure on them to do that. There's a lot of pressure to scale. You talked about humbling yourself. What are some of the other practical steps that a startup founder who's under a lot of pressure to scale, especially in tech where there's just a lot of pressure in the industry to scale, to get to that 100x because of those short-term gains people are looking for? What's some practical stuff they can do to, A, to humble themselves, and B, stand their ground when they get a lot of pressure?
I talked with a really, really great tech leader. His name is Sal Syed, Syed, and he was one of the founders of Arcos, which is a golf technology. It's phenomenal technology. And what he told me, I'll share because I think it could help the audience, because he was a tech startup, okay, under lots of pressure. And his heart was broken a number of times where he was promised, hey, we're going to do this and that, and then it falls apart. And one day he went to one of his potential clients and they would not even let him in the door. And he said, why won't you let me in? They go, well, we don't have anything to talk about. We had a board meeting. We're not interested. He said, I can't even come in. He said, the client said no. So instead of giving up, what Sal did was he thought, okay, I'm not going to sulk. I'm going to connect with humans. He said, I've been trying to scale. Who do I know? And this was in California where he had traveled to. cross country to California. And he goes, I know a guy who lives here in the area. Maybe I'll play a round of golf with him and just catch up with him. He did. Turns out that guy ended up being one of his key partners in the business who got him involved with others. So here's my point. He kept connecting with humans. He was trying to scale. He had a genius product that was technology based, but he had a setback. He turned to humans and he made himself as uncomfortable as he had to go reach out. He was vulnerable and he started a new partnership.
That's fantastic. It's always great to keep the human aspect in things. I think that actually accelerates you instead of slowing you down, in my experience. And it sounds like he'd be a great guest for this podcast if you'd be willing to introduce us.
I will definitely do that.
I love that. Also, one of the things I really love about what you're doing, we're talking about all this, and this isn't just theoretical to you.
Right.
You practice what you preach on this. You actually downsized your company recently. What led to that decision? And more importantly, how has it improved your outcomes as a company?
Well, I downsized it a few years back, probably 8 years back, because I'll tell you what happened. Real bluntly, we were dealing with some very, very large companies that everybody in the audience would know. And their procurement teams were trying to literally kill us on their negotiations. And after we had a few multi-million-dollar bids where we were the favorite, we were the choice, but we lost because there was a $5,000 difference because somebody promised to do it cheaper. And it was multi-millions of dollars, but it was $5,000. We said to ourselves internally, and I think this is important for everybody in the audience. We said, look, we are answering these RFPs, these bids. We're not only giving numbers, we're coming up with great ideas, really great ideas that these clients then look at and they hear us present and they go, oh my gosh, this is a great idea. We love this. We want to work with you. Let's get into the procurement final phase and get this thing figured out. We go in there, we got beat up, they chose somebody else and they stole our ideas. So what we decided to do, Jason, was we said, we're not going to play the game anymore. So we talked to them and said, look, you guys took our ideas, did not hire us. There's no purpose for us to feed you free concepts. And procurement, in that case, said to me, I completely understand. And he said, look, here's what we want. We don't want to lose you guys. Just next time, bring no ideas, just give us a number. I said, well, the problem is we're not based on a number. We bring ideas. And if I give you a number, you're going to pick somebody else if they're $5 cheaper, right? And he goes, yeah, but at least you only gave us the numbers. I said, I don't want to play that game. I want to work with a client that values what we bring to the table. So what happened, Jason, was that work. And here's what's interesting. It wasn't just the bulk of the business we were getting from those companies. It was worse than that. It was the bulk of the time we were putting in to not get it. So literally, we might have had 5 people full-time employed trying to get that business. That never happened every year. So we just pivoted away from that type of business and that type of client. That's what we did. And what were the results? Higher morale, because it was very demoralizing to do really, really great work, present it, hear how great we were, and then lose. And, we got tired of it. So that's what we did. Morale went up, profit went up. We focused working on clients and projects where we were appreciated.
That's fantastic because if you've ever been involved in a proposal process, it can be really frustrating. You put your heart and soul into how do I give the best value? How do I help this client or this prospective client achieve the big outcomes they want to get? And you put your heart and soul into that, and then it comes down to quite often a couple of percentage points, which is crazy, but where they just you get into this procurement process where the decision maker is an entirely different person than the person you talked to and loved what you presented them.
Well, here's what procurement told me, and I'm happy to share this with everybody because it scared me to death. I said, what is your process here? And the procurement person said to me, and bless his heart, he was completely open with me. He said, look, we go to our internal owner, so somebody that is owning this project, and say, give us 3 suppliers that you think could do this project. And so they'll get the 3 suppliers together. So this procurement guy said, look, okay, I get the 3 suppliers. I said, yeah. He said, after that, it's all up to me. I'm going to beat them up and it's the cheapest person. I said, even if your owner internally there says, I want to work with LaBov because they've done ... for me and they've been great, you're telling me you'll still go to the cheapest. He goes, yes, because that owner also said any one of these 3 could do the job. So I said, okay, that's why we're not working with you. It's scary. So you got to look at one thing I suggest and you mentioned this, Jason, about RFPs, procurement being very difficult. One of the best things we ever did was we interviewed the procurement person or persons and just say, hey, how do you do this? Who makes the decision? And when we encounter procurement being the final decision maker, we don't work with them. And it's not against procurement. It's just they don't know who we are. We don't have any chance to prove ourselves to them. We have no track record, and we move on.
And that was really my question for you is what are you doing differently? And so now you're interviewing your potential clients, you're understanding their processes, their priorities, and what's important to the final decision maker. And not only and a lot of advice would be, well, figure out what's important to the final decision maker and just address that, right? But what you're saying is if the final decision maker is a procurement official who's going to make it based on final price and not on what we provide, we're not even going to bid.
Right. And I got to tell you, it sounds scary, but if let's say you win 1 out of 15 of those bids, and generally you're going to win the cheapest one, and you start to do all the addition on that thing, and you go, wait a minute, the math on this is terrible. We spent all this money to get this tiny amount of work. And the other thing I have to share to everybody in the audience, if you're providing ideas and they are taking those ideas, you're now doing a lot of free work. And literally, we have contracts that have been sent to us from procurement that say anything that the supplier will provide as a recommendation becomes ownership of their company. And we'll go, wait a minute, we don't want to do that. And a lot of times they will not back down. So we go, okay, no hard feelings. We're not going to do that. We're just not going to do it. Otherwise, it's just all commodity. And and by the way, you work with a company like that and they show no loyalty to you then, even if you win, you could lose the next time. So you're not building anything with a company like that.
That's great advice. And I think that's really practical advice for our audience on how do you make these choices and draw these lines in the sand?
Right. Yeah. And that's what you have to do. One of those clients did a reverse auction where they started at a number and they kept going lower and lower and lower. And then my company won. And then they said, we're going to do one more reverse auction next week. And they started at the number we were at. And we said, we can't go any further. And they went way down. And then here's the lesson. The company that so-called won it was the incumbent at maybe a fifth of the price that they had charged the time before, but they did win. And within 3 months, that company went out of business. The supplier, they went out of business. They couldn't even afford to do the project. So you just draw the line. It takes guts. But I really do hope that the audience realizes that what you're creating and what you're doing is valuable. And if it comes down to a procurement situation where it's purely just dollars, and worse than that, they're going to take your ideas, think of how you could put your time and effort elsewhere and do better.
Yeah, I think it's great advice to ask the question before you even start the process of how do you make your decisions, who makes them, what's it's based on, and then decide for yourself if that's something you want to pursue or not. So I want to take a break from these questions. This is all great advice, but I want to take a break. I want to play a game. Are you up for a game?
I'm all for it.
All right. The name of this game is rapid response.
Mhm.
I'm going to ask you a series of questions. I want you to respond with the first thing that comes to mind. Now, I'm not looking for a one-word answer. You don't have to give a one-word answer.
Okay.
Don't be fooled by the title rapid response. Please elaborate as much or as little as you'd like. But we want to get to know Barry LaBov a little bit, okay?
Sure.
All right. Barry LaBov, rapid response round. Your time begins now. Podcast recommendation.
Always reach out to podcasts that you're familiar with. And if you're not familiar with, listen to them and make sure they've been around, they're legitimate, and it's something that you think would be interesting for you to share with their audience.
Awesome. That's great advice. What's a podcast you're listening to right now?
Dr. Peter Attia, who's a doctor, and it's all about longevity and health span.
Okay, great. I don't know that one, so I'll have to add that to my feed and check it out. What is a practice you'd like to see more people embrace?
A practice. I believe the practice is dealing with imperfection and making a decision. So, decision making without paralysis of perfection.
Yeah, that is definitely a practice and a learned skill and a very difficult one to learn. Who is someone we should all be paying attention to?
Bob Chapman, who is somebody I mentioned earlier, has written a book, and it's all about treating your employees like family. He just did a new edition. I highly recommend you looking at that book, Treating Everybody Like Family.
All right, we'll check that out. Now, what is your get pumped up song or your walk on music?
My walk-on music is actually a song I wrote called On a Night Like This because I use that in my keynotes. So I actually have a song called On a Night Like This that my band did many years ago, and I use that when I walk up and when I leave.
Is that something we can find somewhere?
Yeah, it is. It's out there. It's On a Night Like This by Mark Urgent. That was the name of the band, or it could have been called LaBov and Beyond, but it is out there.
All right, we'll go find that, and I can't wait to hear that.
It was a music video as well. So there's a music video of me with hair, and it's actually pretty good.
That's exciting. The biggest influence in your life?
My wife is the biggest influence because when I met her, she allowed me to accept my shortcomings and to actually like myself. I was always trying to beat myself up and do better, and I was never satisfied, and she unconditionally loves me.
That's really great. That's awesome. Besides the one you mentioned, what's a book everyone should read?
Well, okay, now I'm going to get a little controversial maybe, but I think the Bible is great, and I think there are books in the Old Testament. I think the book of Jonah is great because it's the story of a man who kept ignoring the advice, in this case of God, and he tried to not do something, and he avoided it, but then he was thrown into having to do it. And it turned out well, but still, like all human beings, he still was irritated about having to do it. So I thought it was a pretty funny book, very, very applicable to how we feel today about not wanting to do something, being resentful, but it was the right thing to do.
I think we can all relate to that from both sides of that story, right?
Yes.
Is we get advice and we don't want to do it, and we don't want to do it, we put it off, and it's painful, right? And when we finally do it, it's still painful, but at least we did it, right? And then from the other side, I don't know where you sit on this, but a lot of times people will come and ask for advice, and you'll give it to them, and then they won't do it.
Right. Well, what I try to do with people is I'll give my advice, especially if it's one of my leaders that I'm working with, and I go, look, I'm going to give you my advice. I'm not saying you have to do it, but I do want you to then totally commit yourself to what decision you are making then. Don't do what I say, but only do it half-hearted. Either do what I say all the way or do something that you believe in and do it all the way.
I really like that advice. I'm gonna steal that. I'm gonna start using it with people. You don't need to follow my advice, but whatever you choose to do, dive into it, do it all the way. I like that a lot. Now, are you in Indiana right now, or are you in Arizona?
I'm in Indiana. I will be in Arizona most of January, February, March, and April.
All right. What is the best winter recreational activity in Indiana?
Wow, that's a good one. I think it's watching college or NFL football, because there's not much going on outside. You could say walking, or you could say skiing, but there's not a lot outside.
Okay. I mean, I grew up in New England, and we have little mountains in New England, not like we have out here out west, and there's a little bit of skiing out there. Is there skiing in Indiana?
Not really. You have to go up a little bit north of that into Michigan and into Canada.
Okay. What is your dream vacation spot?
Well, I just came back from Spain and Portugal, but this sounds crazy, I love Africa. So the 2 times I've been to Africa, and I've been on safari 2 times so far, I loved it. It was absolutely astoundingly beautiful.
Where have you gone in Africa?
South Africa, Kenya, Botswana. I was on an elephant-back safari, meaning I was on an elephant going through the jungle.
That is fantastic. So did you travel exclusively on elephant, or was it like we've got elephants and we drive you out to them, and then like we move everything like another day, and then we get on the elephants the next day? And
it was an elephant camp where the elephants lived there, and you were sleeping there at night, and then during the day you hop on an elephant. Now you have to go on the correct side of the elephant, or he'll step on you and kill you. So you had to go on the correct side of the elephant. You get up on top. They had a little basket, and you sat in there, and it was very uncomfortable, but it was once in a lifetime.
That is fantastic. What is the correct side of the elephant, or is it different for each elephant?
These elephants were trained that if you come up on the left side, you're safe. If something got them on the right side, they'd kill it.
Oh, wow. Don't make that mistake.
You don't want to make that mistake. You would hang very closely to the trainer, or who was called a mahout, and the mahout would say, no, get no closer. And you go, okay. And then he would wait, and he said, okay, now step up on this side, and you were fine.
Okay, this is the one piece of advice from Barry that don't go off and do your own thing wholeheartedly.
Right.
Do what Barry tells you here.
Listen to the mahout.
That's awesome. What is a trend you're excited about?
A trend. Okay, a trend I'm excited about. The trend is collaborating with AI to get better ideas, as opposed to giving AI the project and letting it do it. I think collaborating back and forth to make something better and to achieve something you never could have achieved is exciting.
Well said. I really like how you put that. We get a lot of guests who talk about AI and how they're using it, but I'm really excited about collaborating with AI. I think what we need to be doing is working with AI to enhance our humanity. Let the robots do what the robots are good at. Let humans do what humans are good at, and let's work together to really enhance humanity. And I love the way you put that.
Well said.
Last one. Favorite sports team or player?
Sports team, Philadelphia Phillies. I'm from Philadelphia originally. My son and I are rabid Philadelphia Phillies fans through thick or thin. When I grew up, the first I remembered them was when they completely fell apart at the very end of a season. They were on their way to get to the World Series, and they lost like 11 out of 12 games to lose by 1 game. And since then, I've been holding on hope. And there are 2 different times they won a World Series. So that's my team. I pay attention to them every day of the year, including the off season.
I love that too, because I grew up as a Red Sox fan. I'm still a Red Sox fan, even though I live out here in Vegas, and I know what that's like. And Philly fans are just like Boston fans. You guys are rabid and passionate, and you know what it's like to get your hearts broken year after year.
Well, and with the Red Sox, not unlike the Phillies, the Red Sox went so long, and it was the curse of the Bambino and all this. And then you won a couple in a very short period of time, just a few years back. And it was amazing. Just like when the Cubs won a few years back, I think 2016 or 17, when the Cubs won. It's so thrilling to see a team win for the first time in a while. And the fan base is just astounded by it.
Yeah, it was really great. And then we had kind of a lot of years of Boston sports dominance in a lot of sports. Yep. And now we're kind of back to, oh yeah, this is what normal's like. Okay.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, thank you for playing our game. It's always nice to get to know our guests a little bit more than some of the leadership and business questions get us there. Now, on the surface, your book sounds like a marketing book, but it's really about winning the hearts and minds of people, which is really important in leadership. So what was the genesis of writing your book, and why is it so important to win hearts and minds?
I originally started the book prior to COVID, and it was a simpler book. It was, let's find the uniqueness of what you do, what your brand is all about, your product, your service, etc. Let's crystallize it. Let's communicate it so that your customers buy more. And I thought that was kind of a good book. But then COVID struck, and in a 1-year period, over 100 million people quit their jobs, just walked off. It occurred to me at that moment that this was the eureka moment for the book, because I needed to make sure that the employee felt there was differentiation and uniqueness and value in that company that he or she were working at, or they weren't going to come back the next day. They weren't going to do a good job. And that's why the subtitle of Win Hearts, Minds, and Market Share was born. And that was born basically because we were thinking, is this a good title for the book? The Power of Differentiation. And the subtitle was magical because it's actually the order that you want. You want to win minds and hearts and all that, but you want to win the hearts first. And then you win the minds of your people. And then, you'll get that market share, but it doesn't work otherwise. So that's what made it come to fruition.
Well, and what I love about it is many companies treat those things as mutually exclusive.
Mm-hmm.
There's our market share, there's our marketing, and then there's how are we leading our people? And you're putting forth very correctly, I think, that it's not mutually exclusive. It all ties together.
Jason, you've spoken a lot about people and motivating them, and I love that. When I started my crusade 20 years ago on this concept, I would talk to CEOs, and routinely I'd say, look, we want to discover what makes you unique, but we're going to launch it first internally to motivate your people. And routinely, Jason, I would hear, we don't care about that. We're paying them $5 an hour. They just need to keep their head down, keep their mouth shut, and get the work out the door. I don't care about that. Now, fast forward, the last 5 years or so, I say exactly the same thing, and the CEO, the leaders start to tear up. And they go, we really need our people engaged. If we can give our people a reason to care, I would be out of my mind happy. And that's what's happened in our world. It's more important today than ever. And I run a little business, a small little business compared to my clients who have 20, 30,000 employees. I have to work every day to make sure everybody knows what they're doing is significant. So even in a small company where you know the names of everybody and you know their spouses and you know their kids and you know their friends, and you have to keep reminding people because it's so easy to just think, look, it doesn't matter what I do. What's it matter? And I'm telling you, it's critical. In a large company, it's even more of a daunting task.
Yeah, similar experience coming up through the Air Force is, we always had the option as officers to say, well, the stuff on my shoulders is higher than the stuff on your shoulders or on your arm.
Right.
So I guess we're going to do it my way. But that only gets you so far.
That's right.
Right. I found that the best leaders that I ever worked with, were the ones who did that only when they absolutely had to.
Mm-hmm.
And then the rest of the time, we're trying to inspire, trying to show meaning. I'm really curious, though, what do you think is behind the change in CEOs over the last few years?
I think reality is, I think that 20 years ago, it was an assumption that if you have a job, keep your mouth shut, you're lucky. Today, if you have a job, that's not how people feel. And the CEOs are getting a good dose of it. They're getting a lot of pressure to increase the productivity of their teams. They're getting a lot of pressure to improve the quality control, all these other outside pressures. And a lot of them do not result in better morale. So I think what they're seeing today, and I run into this more often than not, they're seeing today that, look, these leaders are good leaders. They do believe in their people, but they know very, very, very clearly that their people need a strong, regular dose of significance. They need to feel that what they're doing is actually of some level important, and their specific job has meaning to it.
I love that you're seeing this change, and this change is coming about. It's a long time coming, and you're there to help them, which is great. Don't give everything away, because I want people to go buy the book. But are there any other key takeaways from the book that you really want to give the audience today?
I've hardly given anything away. There's 200 pages of it. I'll give one more insight. The words that we use, whether it's with our employees or our clients, are critical. There are 200,000 words in the English language, and too often we use the same 10, quality, service, value, selection, integrity, blah, blah, blah. Nobody even hears them. Pick the words carefully. Like with my company, we have a core value that's jamming, like a jam session. Okay, we pick that as opposed to collaboration. Instead of saying we care about quality, we talk about rigor. Instead of saying, hey, we'll do branding, it's differentiation. The words are important. The words are important because they'll set you apart from your competition, and it gives your people, as well as your clients, an understanding that you're thinking deeper than just surface level.
I think that's such an important lesson. And rigor is one of my favorite words. I'm so glad you use that one in your company, because I think it's a word we don't use enough, and it's a concept we don't teach enough to people. That rigor is so important. It's so much more important than quality. But
right.
Using rigor to get there is so important.
Yeah, and I don't take that as an original for me, because it was a client of ours when we were talking to them. We're saying, what are you guys about? And somebody said rigor. And I went, hold on. That's got to be one of your core values. And he said, why? I said, nobody uses that. I've never seen that as a core value. I've seen quality, but who cares? What's quality? One of our problems with quality is a word. There's high quality, there's low quality, entry-level quality, premium quality, platinum quality, silver quality. It doesn't mean anything anymore. You could have low quality, right? So rigor is, I'm going to work hard, and I'm going to make it right no matter what. And I love it.
Yeah, and the ultimate example of what you're talking about here with the word quality is when I was in the Air Force, probably about when I was in about 10 or 11 years, generals started talking about, we need to choose our words carefully because words have meaning.
Yes.
And by about 3 years later, people would continue to say words have meaning, and it would just go past people. The eyes would roll. It became the cliche we were trying to use it to stop.
Well, good one for you that's related to it that somebody gave me, I love, and that is words create worlds.
Love it.
Words create worlds, and that's what happens. So if your quality, if that's your big word, it's like blah. If it's rigor, you go, wow, that's a different world. It's a little bit of a different world.
I love that. So one of the things that's really great about your company is you get to go inside other companies and work with them. What are some of the leadership and business lessons you've learned from seeing some of these high-profile leaders you've worked with in action?
Couple of things. On the downside, many leaders are too close to what they're doing to see the special or uniqueness of it. And so they will denigrate it. They'll diminish it. So that's on the downside. On the upside, the best leaders I've found are the ones that care about their people. And I mean genuinely care about their people, and that they actually look at people as the answer and not the problem. Those are the very best. Other great traits are, I see humility in the very best leaders. They don't think everything they're doing is perfect. I see hunger. I see vulnerability. They're willing to open up. And I mentioned earlier about procurement that I was working with some very large companies. Many of those companies did not want to do anything hands-on. So I was this company, this supplier, and I had to go, my company had to do all the work. The very best companies that I work with, Harley Davidson's a great example, they roll up their sleeves. They want to work with you. They will partner with you. So that's what the best ones do.
That's great. I love to hear that. I love to hear that it's a partnership, not a vendor-customer relationship. Now, you've shared a little bit in the past that in your experience, a lot of leaders are misunderstood. Tell us more about that.
A lot of leaders are looked at as these sometimes incompetent and sometimes evil. And evil and incompetence, a pretty difficult combination if you think about it to be successful. But a lot of times leaders are looked at as being cold and heartless, and they're not. And I look at myself as almost a leader whisperer or executive whisperer because I can look at the way they behave and tell that, you know what, they do care. They have people around them that think all they want to hear is yes, yes, yes. And they don't. They want to hear the truth. So often leaders are pigeonholed, almost like a prejudice. They're pigeonholed that, look, they don't care about people. They only want to get what they want to get. They think it's their way or the highway. So they're misunderstood. And I think the really smart person is the one that looks at the leader as human and offers up in whatever authentic, respectful way an opposing viewpoint and why for that leader to consider. And I think far often you will find the leader will consider that.
I think that's great. That's, we're a lot of our audience is emerging leaders. They're starting their career. They might be frontline managers, mid-level managers, and it can be difficult to go in and work collaboratively and in a productive way with more senior leaders. So I think that's great advice. And it's also great advice for us in the more senior side of thing of, are people coming to me? Are they bringing me dissenting opinions in a respectful way? And if they're not, what do I need to change about myself?
Exactly.
So I want to go back to choosing words carefully, because you have a really great phrase you use that I believe is chosen very carefully. What does it mean when you tell leaders to avoid the void?
That's one of our favorite topics at our company, and that's this. When there is a void of information, so when the leader goes, we don't have all the answers yet, so I don't want to tell anybody anything, so let's not even bring this thing up. When that happens, that's called a void of information. People will fill that void with negativity. They will assume the worst. And we have worked with clients for decades on that, where they're afraid to mention that, there are rumors of a layoff. And we've said, look, approach your employees and tell them. They go, yeah, but we don't want them to know that. We go, everybody knows there's a rumor of a layoff. And if you don't bring it up, they're convinced you're about to lay them off. And the leaders in many cases would say, look, I don't want to lay anybody off. That's my goal. I cannot promise it, but they will have my word. I'll do everything. And we say, perfect. That's what you tell your people. And believe me, it goes over well. Because people will believe that. So we have to realize you don't wait for things to be perfect. I worked with a company that was putting out an EV motorcycle, electric motorcycle. They did not have the specs on it. They didn't know what the range would be, et cetera, et cetera. So they gave no information out to the sales force. So the sales force just made stories up. So if people would say, hey, tell me about that motorcycle, how much range or whatever, is it safe? Is it safe? And the salespeople, I talked to one, he said, yeah, here's what I tell them about safety. I say, look, I can't tell you if it's safe or not because I have no information, but I will tell you the battery is located right under the seat of the motorcycle. And if it explodes, you know what explodes. And I said to the person, I said, okay, do you know if that's true? And he said, no. I said, do you think that will affect your sales? And he said, I hadn't thought about that. But that's because he had a void of information. So he assumed since they did not bring up the range or the safety that it's got to be a dangerous product. I was like, well, it's not a dangerous product. They've never had it explode. So the thing we have to realize is tell people what you do know. So they would have been better off saying, hey, we did all these safety checks. There's been no explosions. Everything's been fantastic, but we're doing more. And as far as range, we know it's between 98 and 140, but we don't have an exact number. Okay, that's good. But don't wait for perfection because it's not going to come and people will make up stories.
I think this is so important. I want to underline this a little bit. If we as leaders don't provide information because we're not sure, or we don't have all the information, the human brain will fill in gaps. You can tell people not to do it, but you can't fight it. It's evolutionary psychology. Humans have survived on this planet for as long as they've survived because they fill in gaps, whether they're correct or not, but they've survived by filling in those gaps. And so you can't fight it. And what you've got here is a very important lesson for how do you do this? How do you keep your own team? How do you keep your customers? How do you keep the press from filling in those gaps that may be detrimental to your future?
Absolutely right. And you know what? Let's forgive ourselves if we don't have every answer, but let's just be open with people.
Great advice. All right. There's something I want to make sure we don't leave out. Tell us about your podcast.
My podcast is called Difference Talks. We have had now 35 plus episodes. It's every other week. It's on all the major platforms. So Difference Talks. We've had famous authors, CEOs, Grammy Award winners, Emmy Award winners, and we talk about differentiation in the workplace, in the world. We have some amazing discussions that have at times, bring tears to people's eyes. I just interviewed 3 nuns. I interviewed 3 sisters who were incredibly inspiring. And at the same time, I've interviewed Seth Godin, the author. I mentioned Bob Chapman a couple times here. I've interviewed Bob. So, the CEO of Audi, Nissan, Cadillac, Volkswagen, people like that, and listening to them and learning from them. And I'll tell you one thing we ask of every one of them. We ask them, what is their best day? So what's a best day for them? And Jason, almost every answer revolves around them seeing their people do well, their people be motivated, their people being invigorated by what they're doing.
That's great. I know what I feel like my biggest accomplishments in my career have been watching the people who've worked for me, who I've worked with, succeed.
Right.
So that's great to hear that that's very consistent and great advice coming from really, really successful people feel the same way. And I can't wait to go hear the one with the 3 nuns. That sounds fascinating.
Yeah, that one's coming out right before Christmas. We're timing it for the holidays.
I can't wait. So everybody go check that out. So what else is coming up for you in the next few months?
Well, I'm doing more keynote speaking. So there are a number of organizations out there and associations that are reaching out that want to hear this story. And I think that's exciting. There also are schools. When I say schools, Central Michigan University, Yale, others are asking for the book or asking for me to speak with their students. Things like that are very exciting. So we're looking up opportunities like that right now. So it's a very exciting time.
Yeah, I think we might need to get you connected with UNLV out here. I'm a graduate of their MBA program, and I think you'd be a great speaker for that program.
I would love it. Let's do it.
All right. So for everyone watching or listening right now, what's something we can all start doing today to differentiate ourselves and win hearts and minds?
Here's what you can do, everybody, whether you have 2 people in your company or 22,000 people. Use today as your first opportunity to share what you're doing as a company that has value, that's unique. Could be how you're helping customers, how you're doing something that nobody else is doing, or just a little bit different, and how the individual that you're talking to at that moment is helping to make that a reality. Give them an opportunity to feel significant.
I love it. It's a great place to leave it. I want to thank you for joining us today, Barry. Where can everyone find you so they can keep up with where you're going to be speaking, how they can get the book, where the podcast is, and also thank you for joining us today.
Jason, thank you. please reach out to me on LinkedIn. I will respond. I have responded to every inquiry. Also, my website, barrylabov.com, and my company's website, labov.com. Please reach out. And Amazon has the book. I ask you to purchase and leave a review. Let us know what you think of it.
Yeah, fantastic. Those reviews are so important for books, for podcasts, for all that kind of stuff. Barry, thanks again for joining us today. I want to thank all of you for watching and listening. If you found this conversation valuable, go ahead and share it with someone who can use it. Leave us a comment. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you're on a podcast platform where you're able to leave a review, it'd be great if you would leave us a 5-star review. We'd really appreciate that. It helps us build our audience and get these great talks like the one we had with Barry today out to more people. So go out there, do great things today. Onward and upward.